Welcome to We Build Great Apartment Communities, the only show dedicated to the process and strategies for transforming apartment buildings to thriving communities. I am your host, John Bracekett, and welcome to the show. All right, welcome to the show, and I'm really glad to have on our show a guy that I think you're going to find pretty fascinating. His name is Dan Schoenbaechler. Yes. So Dan, welcome to the show. I'm going to give you an intro, Dan, so our audience has a better understanding of who you are, what you've done, and what you're doing today. So, you have a very interesting background. You started off in real estate in 2013, right? You closed at the time roughly about $60 million between that time period. Various types of transactions from, residential to some commercial assets and also some multifamily. And, you've been in the brokerage space for quite some time, but then you made a transition to larger apartment buildings, to multifamily real estate. And you have, quite a bit of experience at this point putting together, apartment acquisitions. You have roughly about 892 units that you are a general partner in, worth roughly around $116 million. So, welcome to the show. Very excited to learn for you to share with our audience how you were able to, amass, right, to create some of that wealth. And again, man, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no, appreciate the time. Great meeting you, and always happy to share my story.
Absolutely. So, hey, let's start with that. Okay. Talk to us a little bit how you got into this business. How did you transition into, being an investor, and now, you're one full time. So can you share your story there?
Sure. So actually my real estate story starts in 2008 when that's when I really got my real estate license, about a month before Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. So I pretty much was out of business before I started. I went to work for a one-man brokerage.
You nailed the timing, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was just a few years out of college. What did I know? But, I realized I wanted to get into sales. I was starting to do the financial advising route, and had all my licenses for that, Series 6, 63, Life and Health. And I was helping people grow their wealth through those services. And I was prospecting a guy on the golf course who was a commercial real estate broker and said, "Hey, we have this $140 million deal you should get involved in. Go get your license." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds much better." So I got a license. 2-week notice. They let me go on that day and got right into real estate school. 2 weeks later, I was licensed and went to work. And a month later, when we were almost at an agreement, negotiation-wise, Lehman went bankrupt and everyone took a big pause. So to this day, most of the portfolio went to foreclosure. It was just a mess. And I ended up moving back home into my parents' house a few months later. So it was a struggle. I did a bunch of other stuff in the meantime, but I was hooked. There's something about real estate, and they specialized in apartment buildings, this broker. So I already kind of had a favorite asset class, and there was something about it. I tried my hand at residential during the recession, was failing miserably, didn't really get the training I needed. It's more so, I feel like the majority of brokerages are just show up. If you're breathing, then you can sit at this desk. Just talk to anybody that walks in.
If you can fog a mirror, then let's give this a shot, right?
Exactly. And just come to us if you really have a problem, any big question. So that didn't work out. That's not a strong model. Got into ad sales, finally a little comfort because like Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I was very fortunate I read when I was 18, but I didn't absorb it all.
Right.
Because I didn't really understand. I was 18. But a lot of the concepts stuck with me, like take risk early on, you can make up for it later in life. You can't have a family of 3 kids, a mortgage, car payments, and be like, "You know what, honey, I'm leaving that 6-figure job to go 0 salary, all commission, or what have you, and start gambling with the money, or I'm going to be a day trader now,"
Yeah.
So I No, I'm now entering my late 20s. I was like, okay, I need a little stability. I've been acquiring debt just naturally through, gas money, racking up the credit card bills. So I got a stable job, and it just kind of worked out where I actually got downsized from one organization right as the market was picking up, and the number one brokerage in North America moved to our town of Hoboken, New Jersey. So I was able to join there. I instantly got the training I needed and an increasing market, which kept everyone extra busy. So I was able to feed off that and kind of thrown in the fire to learn the right way, and was brokering ever since then and able to support myself on it.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
through that, I knew, so I learned what to do first, and I just needed the money to do it. And now that I finally was having money, I knew to jump into some proper investments. I got my life insurance lined up. And then my girlfriend, now wife, we got a 2-family, a duplex that we moved into, 1 unit, house hacked, and we were almost living for free. So that, on top of strong income, we were able to save up within 2.5 years to buy our next property, which was a single family, which we wanted, but there was an investment aspect to it. It was a short sale. We added a lot of value, and we made sure we put ourselves in a good position here. So if we need to pull out equity, we have that option down the road, or what have you.
Sure.
So and still held on to the 2-family, which pays for itself in more than half of this house. So I'm still on the mission to live for free again. But
well, it sounds like this time you're doing it with a little bit more style, and also in a way that's actually paying you, right? And paying you a lot more. So awesome, man. Awesome. We really appreciate you sharing your story. Hey, so Dan, what was the greatest lesson learned during that period of your life? So after you answer that, we're going to start talking about your transition into purchasing apartment buildings and also investing in apartment buildings. So what was the greatest lesson learned there, right? I mean, someone out of college, you went through, you ran into some obstacles, you found your way over some, under the other, through the majority of them, right? So in other words, you didn't stop. You just found a way to keep going until you pushed through threshold, made it to the other side, and it created a new possibility for you. What was the greatest lesson learned, during that period of your life when you look back on that?
It's kind of funny. I feel like I've just been so fortunate that I just had a good upbringing and was actually surrounded by a lot of quality people through my life. So I don't take that for granted. I was 3-sport athlete in high school, and I just had phenomenal coaches, especially our football coach, which we were 2-time state champs my junior and senior year.
Right.
And he was the kind of guy that there was never cursing. If he raised his voice at all, you knew things were bad. But he was just all about the process. If we're in the weight room, it's proper technique. If your butt doesn't touch that board halfway up your calf when you're squatting, that didn't count. Start over. If we run a practice drill, the running back might make a 20-yard run, but he goes, start over. That lineman missed a step. And that was the kind of well-oiled machine. And so I always knew that technique could get you further. So I think during all of that, I just kept going. I was in such low spots mentally and obviously financially. I mean, some days I didn't have enough change in my broken down minivan coin holder to get a coffee that day.
Sure.
So but I just knew there was something better at the other side, and I just kept hustling, kept pushing. And for me, I'm a networker, so I'm just talking to people. So I had a big job that I had since beginning of high school, which ended up really helping carry me through the recession, was caddying at a country club.
Interesting.
Golf bags for club members. And it started in college. My mom worked in HR, and she said, you know what? What's more important than the degree is job experience. So don't just think you need an internship before senior year. Try and get as many internships as you can. So after freshman year, I was out there during the summer asking one of the first questions I say is, so what do you do for a living?
Right.
And I really got to know everybody and their guests. And, sometimes I bring a lot of regular guests. So you get to know these people that aren't even members. And I just learned how to sell myself and network from there. And I learned a lot of good business lessons on the course too, which helped down the road. But that kind of started my database of high net worth and accredited people that later would be interested in investing, because I can't find the kind of returns locally in an expensive market like Northern New Jersey that I can get in the Midwest or the Southeast. So, and now it becomes a passive opportunity for them too.
Of course,
but
of course.
not everyone wants passive. They want to control the deal because they are a successful person, and that's fine too. We'll find something that works out, and maybe I source a deal and we can partner together on it. So it just opened up options, and I learned how to read people a little better. But at the end of the day, I knew there was something better at the end of the road, and just keep plugging away, keep doing what you're doing, and you can eventually get back to where you wanted to be.
Man, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I think those are some great observations, and more importantly, you've been able to take those experiences and convert them into application, right? So you've been able to apply that, and now that's turned into wisdom. So now we're going to fast forward a little bit more, and we're going to start talking about this transition that you made into investing, of course, in larger, apartment buildings. At this point, you're a general partner in roughly, I think, roughly 800 and maybe 80 or 90 units.
Yep.
Now, I find that really interesting, right? Because, that's a pretty good, number of doors to be attached to. And I know that deals can look many different ways, of course, but the biggest thing that I get out of that is experience, right? Okay. When you're working in volume, you just get a lot of experience. You look at a lot of different things. You have a lot of different conversations. You look at how you're able to see how deals are underwritten, which I think is really, really important, how deals are presented, right? And then ultimately what the results were. So can you kind of walk us through that transitional period for you when you went from brokering, right, and investing in smaller properties, and then you made that switch? What kind of clicked for you, and how did you accelerate that process?
Sure. I think, again, it's another story of I found someone that really helped accelerate that process, a quality person. And that person was Jason Yarusi, who he was looking to flip some houses because he had a house flipping business on top of the construction company he ran, and right, wholesaling and whatnot. And he showed up to a flip one day, a potential flip I was showing him. And he goes, "By the way, I just got under contract on 94 units in Kentucky." I said, "How much money do you have?" He goes, No, I syndicated it. I was like, "How come I don't know what this means?" And he explained the process, and he said the beauty of it is it's very scalable. So while all our friends and family just invested in this one, we're a little tapped out for capital resources. We'd be looking to take on partners that can help raise additional funds and help us navigate the deal. So
sure.
I said, I think I could be good at this. And it really turned into the culmination of everything I was doing, which was the years of caddying and surrounding myself with these country club people. I happened to sell fairly high-priced property for the most part in Northern New Jersey. It's expensive here.
Right.
So a lot of Wall Street people, et cetera, people with good quality jobs, some disposable income. And I had the financial advising background. I was trying to build people's wealth. And when real estate came along, I said, wow, I can help people grow wealth through real estate, which has made more millionaires, I think, than any other asset class. So it really just all came together. And I was like, wow, this is even more powerful than brokering, where I can give more people opportunities. Because like I said, even for the affluent country club members, they're like, yeah, find me a 7.5 cap. I was like, all right, you're not going to like where we're going, but it's a risk reward. You got to remember that. It's the amount of risk you're taking on. But to get the cash flow, you can do it in other markets, which are not in our backyard. So, and also leveraging to a point where, we're so many units, usually 50 or 75 plus units, then we can leverage third-party management and even some on-site salary positions to help make sure that we're almost a little more passive in it. I say, we're not the ones changing the toilets in the middle of the night, and
right.
Able to give the cash flow on top of that to our investors. So was working with Jason for a year, eyeing up all these potential deals, got close on a few, and it took 12 months and 60 offers until we got our second deal. So that was the first one I jumped in on. So I say I've been in the syndication space for 3 years, but got my first property 2 years ago.
Interesting.
And it's one of those, when it rains, it pours. So in the next 12 months, I closed the other 4 too. So I've been going about 9 months now without a deal, but it's getting cloudy. There's a lot of rain about to come.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that, right? So you said it's getting cloudy. There's a lot of rain that's about to come. So share your perspective on that.
Like I said, keep up your activities. It's very much, I've learned a lot of these lessons through the brokerage world too, with the training and stuff to become a top producer. You're prospecting, you might make 100 calls a day. So if you're working 5 days a week, that's 500 calls a week, right? Usually on average, you like to think that for every 100 calls, you get 10 prospective people and you get 1 listing out of that. And these are just ballpark sales numbers. So hopefully 100 calls a day gets you 5 listings a week. There could be a week that just statistically you get nothing. You made 500 calls with nothing to show for it.
Right.
And the next week you could get 20 people that want to list. So it's the law of averages. And if you just keep doing the activity though, and keep plugging away, it's bound to follow, because the law of averages is a law for a reason. So it's been proven a couple times.
Okay. Well, talk a little bit though about the, when you say the water is getting cloudy, the water is getting murky, I can't remember the exact expression that you use.
When it rains,
what do you see coming down the pipe that made you express that, right? I mean, do you see more opportunities hitting the marketplace?
Yep.
So why? Talk a little bit about that. What are you seeing that's making you, suggest that?
Sure. Just a combination of all the networking and reaching out I've been doing. Still kind of quarantined. So there's been a couple quote unquote quarantine deals. Not too much. I think for the most part, multifamily has been very strong. All our assets are performing very well. We put a pause on a couple distributions, but for the most part, already unleashed them and haven't had any issues with getting the investors paid. So looking to continue that. And it's also a testament of buying right, that we got the deals for the right price and the right operations are in place to make sure that they stay steady.
Right.
So I think a lot of people are, it did upend some people. Maybe they own this one apartment building, but the rest of their assets are retail and office, and all their tenants stop paying rent. So right. They need to unload this apartment building, even though it's the best thing they have.
Sure.
So there's opportunities and things happen in life, but we're always kind of looking for that distressed sale anyway. The mom and pop that, life happens, maybe they're just looking to retire and this is it, just cash out, or they just let the management get so far behind they can't keep up. So those are the kind of value add opportunities we're looking for. But it's a combination of just growing my network. And, the more people I meet, there's always, 1 or 2 out of 100, like a deal. It's 1 or 2 of these people are, wow, we can really vibe and do something together. And there's been a couple people that reached out, even after some podcasts. So give me a call.
Sure.
We're doing like 3-4 things together and chasing down all these opportunities. And, my niche is that I partner with quality people. It's just when you see talent, you just want to kind of surround yourself with it, whether the timing's there or not. Don't let it go. And that's also if you're building a team. So I find quality people, I try and give as much value as I can to them, and hope that we get something mutually beneficial out of it. So just enough people and brokers and contacts that suddenly people come back like, hey, Dan, it's been a little while, but I got this thing now. And so the opportunities are really filling up the pipeline strong right now.
Right. So what kind of opportunities are you guys being presented at this point in this marketplace? What are what's typically being presented to you?
Sure. Along that line, I've also been looking to diversify a little bit with asset classes. So this is all pre-COVID, actually. I was, looking very heavily into mobile home parks and self-storage facilities because they were kind of known as being pretty recession-proof.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden we had this quick little recession. So I think they all got their point across. But in addition to that, I had an opportunity that some real estate guys I knew were going to be getting into an industrial property and starting an indoor hemp growing facility. So that was definitely diversified from apartment buildings, much different.
Of course.
And more of a business than a real estate, but there's a value add real estate play within it. So it's not too far in for any of my investors or myself. And it's a space I've always been interested in the economics of. And from what we've done, the due diligence and everything, it's going to prove to be that way. So very excited about that. I'm going to grow that vertical because there's definitely a future for more of those. However, still very active on the mobile home park and self-storage search, which both also I think outranks multifamily. Out of the top three, multifamily is third for best performing asset class in the past 40 plus years. So they're on my radar.
And what's 1 and 2?
I don't remember what's the difference. Which one's number 1 and which one's number 2? All I remember is they are the top 2.
Interesting.
And that was something I got from a great guy, Ryan Smith from Elevation Capital. That's all he's into, self-storage and mobile home. And he said he's a super analytical guy, like computer genius. He said, I just broke down the numbers. Out of the top 3, I went for the top 2. And that's my whole business model. I said, so efficient, so smart.
Yeah.
It's like, no one told me that. Maybe
one of the cool things about this business is that there's really a lot of different ways to build wealth, right? And that's why I love, that's what I love about real estate. You can buy big, right? And you can or invest big. And in some cases you can invest in smaller properties, but make the same amount of profit, if not more, on a property that's smaller just because the economics make a lot more sense, or you have a unique, durable, competitive advantage with that asset because it's in a very unique location, or there's something that's going to drive a premium. For example, I closed on, it was a smaller property right next to a 21 unit that we owned, right? And, fortunately the broker that was selling that property, they reached out and they contacted us, which was great. And I'm really grateful for, but that little property, I mean, it's a 3-unit property, but it's literally right across the street from something that we already own, maybe 50 feet. So to manage it, very easy, right? But on that property, end up buying it at a great price. It was an estate sale. We, put 30% financing on it, maybe 140% financing on it, right? So now the return is infinite, but that little asset is netting, roughly 30 grand a year, right? This is net cash flow.
Yeah.
And then we're able to refinance that bridge loan that we used on it, for cheap long-term money, 30 years, fully amortized at 4%. So awesome. That's like an example of buying because it's profitable, right? Mm-hmm. In most cases, I would have completely passed on the deal, but over the years, I've learned to look at a deal based on its merits. Like, okay, hey, just because this is a small property in the past, I would have dismissed it. Too small, right? But fortunately, this was right across the street from something that we already owned. So the first thought was, okay, this is going to be very easy to manage.
Yep.
Okay, so let's look into this further. And the more and more I started looking at this thing based on the zoning, we were just able to add a lot of value, a lot of hidden value, a lot of value that was hidden because this asset has been in the family for, since 1920, right? Wow. And the other folks that have looked at it, they just missed a lot of things that we're able to uncover. So when we executed on our value add plan, it was really straightforward. Then we refinanced it into cheap 30-year fixed product, which is great for this market, right? because now our risk is less. We already had the tenants lined up, ironically, from all the pre-marketing that we're doing with our other property. So, but something like that, right? Really small, but you're netting 30 grand a year, technically 27. But that's an example of why this business is so tremendous. A lot of different ways to create opportunity, and it's only limited by your way of thinking and your ability to be able to identify and create opportunity, right?
Yep.
So
here's an interesting fact.
Yeah.
My duplex in New Jersey gives me more cash flow than the 892 units out of state.
Yeah. And so this is what I try to get people to also recognize, right? Is that, you can't just look at the number of units. You have to look at profits. A good friend of mine, he mentioned this to me many years ago. And, this was in 2008 when things were tanking. That's when I got into this business. And I'm really grateful that I did. But a very good friend of mine, and I came from a commercial banking background. So he was one of my he wasn't one of my first customers, but he was a customer that I made $1 million line of credit to, right? It was $1 million line, and we're still very good friends to this day. But he lives up in Beverly.
$1 million, I'll be your friend too.
Yeah. He lives up in Beverly Hills. Okay. And, at the time he was selling he was flipping about 100 properties a year.
Wow.
Okay. And this was trustee sales. So he was truly flipping these properties. Go buy them at auction and then, resell them literally within days, right? Okay. To close. And so he mastered this down, and it was a business. I mean, he had a full-on operation with staff. But I remember asking him, I said, Ben, you probably get at least 2 to 3 phone calls a day of people asking you to invest their money with you, right? And he goes, John, I get at least 3 of those calls a day, not a week, a day. And I said, well, why don't you do it? He said, well, right now I'm doing $10 million in sales, right? So I built out this machine where I'm doing $10 million in sales. I'm netting $1 million a year, okay, net. He said, if I take on another $10 million of capital, okay, now I net $2 million. I still only keep $1 million. So effectively, I've just purchased $10 million worth of headache, right? For the same amount of money. He said, no, thanks.
Yeah, no.
And I never forgot that, right? And so because of that conversation that I had, this was probably 13, 14 years ago, it always made me look at, investments very, very differently, right? Very differently, irrespective of the size. One of the things that I've always learned is you can create a lot more leverage on the upside when you have more units, right? 100, yep. 200 units. The leverage on the upside is massive. Okay. Sometimes the cash flow, not so great. So if you're a great operator, then you can move in that direction, right? But anyways, the reason why I wanted to share that, man, is you brought up some really good points. And, it's about focusing on the economics and not so much on the number of units, rather, let me buy something that makes sense, right? That makes economic sense. So
yeah, someone might say, why would you even bother spending all this time if you're making more money on a 2-family locally? Buy more 2-families. Well, the money to save up and do that is a lot. And most of these properties that we're syndicating have a probably 7-year or less time frame to exit. And I'm eventually going to start getting cash flow once we finish adding a lot of value and start beating out the preferred return, because we're in that build out stage right now.
Right.
We're renovating a lot of units, meeting the minimum preferred return for investors before the general partners, which I fall in, get paid a cent. So that's where it's a long-term game. And anyone that thinks real estate is a quick moneymaker, it's not necessarily that way. So I'm still brokering to maintain a living and save up to put more money into deals. But at the same time, opportunities come. And now I've expanded that network enough, and enough people think of me as Dan, a real estate guy, a capital guy, that we can start doing more opportunities. So I'm actually looking at a couple joint ventures right now where I could probably source the equity person to come in and, we'll split up all the activity and roles. But for the most part, me and the other partner will be driving most of the operation. So we're actually I'm looking at a building I used to live in. How funny is that?
Interesting.
In a market I normally wouldn't, but I'm so familiar with it. And I know that for where it is, for what it is, it looks good enough to take a shot at. So
sure.
We figured, I feel like with unit count, I mean, price wise and cash flow wise, we could syndicate this, but I'm also in a position where I'd start to like having a little more cash flow today so that I can get to full-time syndicating faster. I have a 5 to 10 year goal to get out of brokering. And by that, I mean, not have to sell if I don't want to. I'll probably keep my real estate license till I'm dead. And I will probably be, selling homes I want to along the way, top clients, friends and family, stuff like that. But, there's, it would be nice to say, no, thanks. I got someone else I'll refer you to, and I'll keep 25%.
Yeah.
So,
every investor has stories, right? One of the great things about this business is there is no shortage of stories when you start, really focusing on this full time, right? When you really dive in and you start turning this into a business. And you will never have a shortage of stories. So, we're approaching the end of the show now, but share with us, Dan, your most memorable story so that our audience can get a great feel for, what this business has to offer. Because there's a lot of humor in it. There's a lot of work, but there's also a lot of humor, right? But there's also a lot of profit. So, man, share one of your best stories, please.
Well, I guess one of my best brokering stories is probably, it's the recession. I decided to try my hand at residential because while the commercial markets froze up, at least people really need a place to live. And I was in Hoboken, New Jersey, so it's expensive. People are still paying good rents, good prices for condos. So I get my first listing. It's President's Day weekend. I meet with the seller. It's friend of a friend, so it was kind of like just show up and sign paperwork. This shouldn't be hard. So they take the paperwork. I said, "Oh, we're going away for a ski weekend. We'll be back Monday night. We'll give you the paperwork Tuesday." And I'm already calculating the commission. This is going to pay off the debt I have right now. And I'm actually at a comedy show in town Sunday night, and this comedian looks down at this girl in the front row and goes, "I'm sorry, am I boring you?" Because she's on her phone, just texting away. She goes, "Oh, sorry, my friend was saying her building's on fire." 20 minutes later, the comedian takes a pause in his set and goes, "So how's your friend doing?" She goes, "Apparently it's like a 4-alarm fire, 3rd in Washington." And I just throw my drink. I'm like, I gotta go. And I run down there, and there it is. The building my listing was in was aflame. The bodega in the first floor had an electrical fire, and the whole thing went up.
Oh, wow, man.
As did my commission and my dreams. So that was literally one of the many reasons I had 8 sales fall through in the 9 months I was a full-time residential broker. And that's when I said, okay, maybe I get into advertising sales and get a little cushion, a little salary plus commission. Right. Because I'm not making it on the current direction we're going. So,
man, but you know what? Here's a cool thing, right? When you can share those stories, it helps make the reality of investing in real estate that's producing passive income, right? And I think what the audience and just what people don't understand is that, nothing is rarely passive because you still have to work it to get it to that place where it is passive, right? Even you're buying 100, 200 unit property and you have on-site management and, a maintenance crew and a full-on team, you still have to actively engage that team to produce income, or at least it hits your budget.
Yep.
Right. But, without having, a stream of income coming in, right, in addition to what you're doing, if one income goes away, then you're left with nothing. Right. And at this point, man, you've built a really good portfolio of units that will start producing for you long term. So congratulations. You'll be able to share that story many, many times, and this time smile about it like you're doing now.
Oh yeah. It's that was 10 years ago. So a lot has changed since then.
I'm sure.
But I will leave with this quick positive note. I would say that part of the reason why this has been going so well for me is because it's one of those things, like that phrase, when you enjoy what you're doing, it's not work.
Right.
And really the advice is just play to your strengths. If you're a numbers person, there's a place for you, because this is a team sport. There's a place for you. People need help analyzing deals. They either have too many coming across their table, or they're not the analytical type. They might be the perfect asset manager, finder of deals and negotiator, but they need a numbers person. Myself, I am the networker, money person. Luckily, I also have brokerage experience helping to source deals and investor relations. But even on the brokerage side, my day-to-day leading up to this was calling people to talk about real estate. This is nothing different. So it was very easy to fold into my life and start transitioning, because it doesn't feel like work. I'm doing it 7 days a week, and it's just natural at this point. So that's what I think everyone needs to do at the end of the day. Even if real estate investing is not for you, I hope you just find something that is to your strengths, because you'll enjoy it more, and you will eventually be more successful and profitable from it.
Hey man, I really appreciate you being on the show. You've been a tremendous guest. Thank you. I'm very happy and excited for you with the success that not only you've created, but that you're going to continue to create for yourself and your investors. And it's just been great to have you on the show, sharing a very different perspective, in this business. So thank you so much for doing that. Dan, how do people get in touch with you?
Sure. They can email me at dan@schoencap.com. That's DAN@SCHOENCAP.com, or my cell phone, call or text 973-919-7311.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clarity of purpose creates our greatest competitive advantage. When we transform apartment buildings to thriving communities, we improve how people live and create assets with high profit margins. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this up with a friend. I'm John Bracekett, bringing you things you can implement right away.